Good morning and welcome back. Once again, we are continuing our journey through the Bible. We're still in the book of Job, and we're going to be looking at Eliphaz's argument with Job about who is to blame for Job's misfortune. Here we have Job chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. Eliphaz spoke. I hope you won't be cross, but there's something I need to say to you, and I can't hold back any longer. In the past, when others have stumbled, weak and exhausted, your words of encouragement got them back on their feet again. Now it's you in trouble, and you're too stunned to face facts. If you worshipped God and behaved impeccably, you should be filled with confidence and hope. So, think about this. Can you think of a single instance where a truly righteous person met with disaster? I've seen plenty of examples of people ploughing in wickedness and evil, now harvesting what they sowed. God finishes them off in an angry storm. They might roar and growl like lions, but God shuts them up and breaks their teeth. Unable to kill and eat, they die, and their children flee. Well, here we have the analytical mind of Eliphaz trying to come to terms with Job's sorry state. The trouble is, he's like a scientist trying to make a theory without all the evidence. Most of Eliphaz's evidence is guesswork and hearsay. He urges Job to try and think of an example of anyone as perfect as he thinks he is, who has suffered a disaster like his. The truth is that those who have met with disaster have all been judged to be evil by their neighbours, not because they were truly evil, but because it was a convenient excuse to shun them and not offer them help. Calling their misfortune a judgment from God was unjust. And one point of the book of Job is to direct people to think again about the disasters that had visited the Jews in the recent past. The common view was that the Jews had not behaved perfectly according to God's wishes, and defeat and exile were a punishment. Prophets of the time, and particularly the later Isaiah, had a different view. They were beginning to see that suffering like theirs can be regarded as a sacrificial offering to God, like a lamb to the slaughter. This line of thought would eventually lead to the early Christian understanding of the death of Christ, his resurrection, and his continuing on earth as a whole body of people who continue his life, work, and teachings. Today, Eliphaz is bursting to speak, longing to correct Job. He is sure that the suffering man can't possibly be innocent. He must have done something to deserve this dreadful fate. Later in the next chapter, he says to Job in chapter 5, verses 6 to 8 and verse 17, evil doesn't sprout from the ground, does it? Really, people bring trouble upon themselves, as surely as sparks fly up from a fire. If I were you, I'd place my case before God. Those God corrects turn out happy, so don't resent it when he tells you off like this. The idea that all our misfortunes are our own fault still stalks the world today, and with good reason. Ecological crises, the collapse of insect and animal populations, pollution and climate change, all have been made worse by human exploitation and greed, and it will take human intervention on a large scale to put some of this right again. We can now see the consequences of the actions of generations since the Industrial Revolution, because we have sufficient evidence to do so, but we must resist saying that any individual's ill fortune is caused by their personal evil. That's going too far. The Pharisees and their predecessors found it necessary to invoke not just personal sins, but the sins of past generations, parents and grandparents, as causes of disease and disaster. They put these words into scripture, for instance, in Exodus 20, chapter 20, verse 5. I will visit the sins of the parents upon their children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Personal guilt does not always lead to retribution in this life. And sinners, as the psalmist wrote, sinners often do pretty well for themselves. Look at Psalm 73, for instance, which says, I had nearly lost all my confidence, and my faith was seriously weak, and how jealous I was of these arrogant people. Look at how fine life is going for wicked people. Free from pain, they are hale and hearty. They don't suffer like the rest of us. Their hearts pour out evil, and their minds are occupied with wicked plans. This psalmist doesn't entirely abandon the idea that there will be a comeuppance for the wicked, however, but like later thinkers, he puts it off to the realm of the eventual, what we might call Judgment Day. Tomorrow, we hear Job's answer to Eliphaz, and I'll see you then.